I told you that the Patriotic Front borrowed well over $26 billion in total public debt by the time they left office? But they still have the sheer audacity to look you in the eye and blame the UPND for the current state of our economy. Welcome to the Zambian People's Pulse. I'm Tanya, and I have exactly one job, and that's to make you think deeper. Today we're going to dive into the anatomy of a debt. We're going to look at one of those exact loans that the current government successfully restructured just this month. It was a massive, staggering, suffocating loan, which we, the people of Zambia, will be paying back for almost a quarter of a century. So let's dive into it. Let me set the scene. So the year is 2020. The world is watching the UK-Africa Summit in London. But while ordinary Zambians are back home feeling the squeeze of a failing economy, the PF government was busy popping champagne and signing on the dotted line. They gleefully agreed to a massive deal for £244 million, which is roughly $291 million at that time. And they borrowed this directly from the UK Export Finance. And what was the purpose of this massive loan? Well, it was a contract. It was to contract NMS infrastructure to build 5 large district hospitals and over 100 mini hospitals across Zambia. Now, if you ask anyone from the former ruling party about this loan today, they'll point to you at the bricks and mortars and they'll say, yeah, we did a damn good job. And they'll demand applause from you. But I want to be fair, and I promise you that we always think deeper on here. We're going to look at some other angles. So, physically and medically, yes, the project delivered. Over 108 of these facilities are operational today, and they've brought vital maternity care, ultrasound stations, primary health, and access to underserved rural communities. Hundreds of thousands of Zambians rely on them. So if a mother safely delivers a baby today at the Tuwalange or Kaonga mini hospital, that is a localized, undeniable success. But let's talk about what happens the day after the ribbon was cut. Let's talk about the reality of keeping these doors open. Do these hospitals generate revenue? A little bit, through NEMA, as you know, our National Health and Insurance Management Authority. These clinics can bill for services where registered citizens walk through the doors. They also collect a small nominal fee from users. But let me be crystal clear. Not a single ingwe of that local clinic revenue goes towards paying off that massive UK loan. It barely covers the day-to-day bandages and the sweeping of the floors. The truth is, that $291 million loan only pays for the brick and mortar and the initial shiny equipment. The second the contractor handed over the keys to the Zambian government, 100% of the operational costs became the permanent, daily responsibility of you, the Zambian taxpayer. So to keep these 100 plus facilities operational, the Ministry of Health has to pump billions of kwacha into them every single year. And the reality of these costs is actually staggering. You see, half of the money vanishes immediately into labor, hiring and paying thousands of doctors, nurses, and support staff to maintain the building. The other half is swallowed up by the... Would you be surprised if I told you that while everyday Zambians are forced to buy their own malaria pills, the government is hiding a secret audit to protect the politicians who stole the free ones? I'm Tanya, and I have one job here, and that's to make you think deeper. Welcome back to part 2 of There's No Sacred Cow. In the first part, we established that demanding accountability doesn't make you a political cadre. We looked at the $50 million in US aid that was lost under the UPND due to systematic medicine theft. And we asked if the president's no sacred cows promise was actually real. Today we're looking at what appears to be a cover-up, because a hidden audit is exactly how you protect a sacred cow. After the US cut funding, President Hichilema's own government commissioned a forensic audit of the Zambian Medicine and Medical Supplies Agency by PricewaterhouseCoopers. The audit began in October 2024 and it concluded in August 2025. It's now March 2026. You, the taxpayer, paid for the audit, but you are still not allowed to see it. Back in September 2025, the Ministry of Health presented summary findings to Parliament.
Thank you very much. Today we are hosting Tanya Malama Fuchs, an expert based in the United Kingdom, and I was playing snippets of viral videos on TikTok. TikTok is just another world, and Tanya's special short broadcast have gone viral, and she's quoted even by international media for her commentary on Zambia, the economic, social, and political issues happening in our country. And she's our guest today. I'll speak shortly about Tanya. She's already in the studio with me, but let me start with this. The matter of serious concern that happened in Kalumbila, where we lost a 46-year-old woman from Chingola. She traveled to see her relatives in Kalumbila in Solwezi. Her name is NLS Helen Kamtumba. Today she was being put to rest. On, is it 21st or so, March 2026, in Kisasa area of Kalumbila district, she was clearly, brutally murdered by a mob following false allegations by a 25-year-old young man who claimed that his private parts were stolen from him when apparently they bumped into each other. If you see the video, the sickening part is that they are children, they are young people that were conducting this murder. How life was not respected, how the sacredness of life was not honored. We saw this during the gassing period, where even a former permanent secretary was killed. Someone just needed to say, Evalechta gassing, and the mob descended. And in the manner they killed, there's some depravity that has emerged. The manner in which Jackson Kungo, member of Central Committee of the PF, was killed on election day in Solwezi, same manner, false allegations, and the crowd descends, and the brutality of the murder is a matter of serious concern. So may the soul of the lady from Chingola, NLS Helen Kamtumba, rest in eternal peace. But it's a moment of reflection for all stakeholders, for all the leaders in various spheres. Whether you are a civic leader or you're a political leader, you are a leader in change. What happened in Kisasa is a window that is showing us something dangerous is brewing in our communities, in our country. Today I'm hosting Tanya Mwamba Fuchs. She's a senior marketing strategy and she's a civic advocate. Tanya Mwamba is a senior marketing professional with over 20 years of experience driving growth for global tech leaders, including Pleo, Inuit, QuickBooks, and Board International. Currently, she's at the Adaptive Group. She continues to forge her career in the high-stakes tech landscape in the United Kingdom, while her mission is now firmly centered on the future of Zambia, and this has shown by various trips back to our home country, Zambia. Why I brought her here, for me, the videos she's been issuing, very, very wonderful, insightful analysis on the state of our country. This is a conversation like no other. Let me bring Tanya onto the studio. Tanya, I'm grateful that you honored my invitation, and thank you very much. We don't take it for granted. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you.
Your videos have attracted international attention. Every time I go to your page, I see commentary and the viral nature in which your comments, especially on Zambia, have gone viral. Are you surprised by the virality of these videos?
Not at all. I expected it. No, of course I am. Of course I am. No, it's been a nice surprise. You do the videos and you know how it is when you produce something and you're like, I think it's really good, but I don't know. And it's only when you start to see those numbers racking up. Actually, it's only when people randomly send me something, or like I'm tagged on a random page, like I was tagged on, what's that web, whistleblower, Zambian whistleblower. And I was like, oh my God, I've never even heard of them. So you end up like, intrigued, I was contacted by DW, the German news company, as well. So it's things like that that kind of make you think, oh, okay, people are watching. So it's been a pleasant
No,
surprise.
we want your voice to be located in Zambia very strongly. For me, I've attempted when I formed this podcast to elevate the debate. I always joke that if you look at our newspapers, you look at everyday commentary in our country, it's like, especially our political leaders, they talk about who has the largest forehead, who has the largest nose, or who's short and who's tall, and not the issues affecting our country. And when I hear narratives like the one you push, I said she should be on the podcast. And many media in Zambia must quote her so that we elevate the quality and standard of our debate, so that we can go back to the issues that should emancipate our countries, issues of policy, issues affecting our people, and policies that are implemented. So it's for the reason that you are here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, tell us about yourself. Many people will not know who Tanya Fuchs is, who Tanya Malama Fuchs. In fact, when they hear Malama, they get surprised. Oh, she's Zambian. Tell us about yourself.
Oh, that's one of those horrible questions. It all started in 19... Anyway, we won't go there. But I'm originally born in Mansa and grew up in Zambia. I'll try and do, I think, an abbreviated version, and we can add color to the story a bit more later. But I grew up in Mansa and, grew up in Lusaka. I went to the international school. I went to Kabwe Trust School for a period of time. And then around about 14, I went to boarding school in the UK. And from 14 to about 16, my parents moved back from Zambia to the UK. So actually, I just finished my GCSEs. I was like, yes, I'm going back home. I'm going to party, see my friends. And my parents called one day and said, no, we're moving back to the UK. You're not coming back. And I was like shattered because I just wanted to go and have fun with my friends. But so that's kind of where my life then transitioned to being based in the UK. And from that period on, like education, university, marriage, families kind of happened in the UK. And I was one of those people, like I always said, no, I'm Zambian. I told everyone knew I was from Zambia. And, oh, no, I've only been in the UK 2 years, 5 years. And I remember I got to 10 years of saying, no, I've been in the UK 10 years. And I was like, you need to stop that. You're now just in the UK. So you kind of have to adapt your mindset, your thinking. Who are you? What's my identity? And so I then adapted myself. I, became a British person effectively. I got my British passport. When I got married, I actually ended up then moving to Spain. So my family and I moved to Spain. We were there for about 4 years. I'm somebody like with itchy feet all the time. You just about settle into something and then you're like, what about if we do this? So originally I'd wanted to move to Australia, but then we decided, no, let's move to Spain because it was a bit closer to the UK as well. And so I spent 5 years there. But when I left my now ex and came back to the UK, I was also in a bit of a limbo, like, well, who am I? What is my life? And I stayed in the UK for a bit.
Are you still nostalgic about Zambia?
I'm getting there. The punchline. So I came back to the UK, but then when COVID hit in 2019, it was one of those things. I was actually in the middle of arranging the International Women's Day with the embassy in the UK, and we had to cancel that event. Yes, with the Zambian embassy. And we had to cancel the event because, we just didn't know whether we'd be allowed to hold this event. And, we went on lockdown and the whole of the UK just came to a standstill. And that 2-year period was one of those, like, I was on my own. There's a lot of self-reflection. And I remember just thinking, when we come out of lockdown, I'm going straight to Zambia. And I remember I'd refused to get the COVID vaccine. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then when it was like, in order to travel, you have to have the vaccine. I was like,
get the vaccine.
Yes, my yes. I was like, I'm gonna do this now. So I arranged a nice trip. I did a 3-month trip. I'm lucky enough that I'm a remote worker, so I can work from anywhere. So I just arranged a 3-month trip. I was going to be in Zambia. I had this whole like going to South Africa, Livingston, and I was, doing this big trip. I was in Lusaka 1 week and I was like, I don't want to go back. I just, from
Mm,
that point, I
mm,
just thought, how do I make this my home? How do I transition over, and so that I, can be here. But what I've effectively done is I actually go back and forth. So I will spend a few months in the UK. So currently, like I'm in the UK, and then I'll spend a few months in Zambia. So it's been actually a pleasure to be pleasure and a privilege to be able to live on two continents and go back and forth. Because our Zambian people, when you get tired of them, it's like, yeah, like any work, no delays
yes,
on things.
yes. No,
So
wonderful intro. I think it will work for today's broadcast. This is what brings me to this question. Your commentary, good analysis on the economy and on our politics. You've lived, in Zambia, in the UK, in Spain, and visited many places across the world. When you look at our 60 years, the life of our country, where we are, as we look forward to the next 60 years, what do you think we should have done better? What errors and mistakes did we make? What can we do better? What's your reflection of the last 60 years of our country?
that sounds like, when you're at school and the teacher says, could do better on your report card. It's a really difficult thing because, in all honesty, depending on what type of character you are, if you're a person of faith or not, I do believe that things happen as they are supposed to. And the things that we've gone through are things that the country and the leaders have been impacted to do. We found that we have a massive wealth underground, and that wasn't something that somebody decided or chose. It's just a part of where we live. We're a landlocked country, so we have to do our exports very differently to how other countries are doing theirs. We started as a population of 3 million at independence, and we're now at 20 million people. We're trying to change our economic status because we're always looking, let's say, to what the Western world is saying, but we're not necessarily reflecting on our own world and saying, you know what, we don't need the Western world's financial, abundance. We want to participate in those things. So what you do for yourself and then what the outside world influences on you as well is a very difficult balancing act. And so what we've ended up with is people coming in and dominating based on their power and experiences and dictating the directions that we should go. And the rest of the country has to fall in line. So what I think is more pertinent is it's easy to have a person of power come and influence and move your country in a certain direction, as we've seen with Trump in America. But it's not so easy for people to push back. And I think that's the problem that Zambia has had. Culturally, we're a very docile, well-behaved people. If you're muchinshi, if you're balanda mkwai, when you have a CEO of a company speaking in a lot of companies in Zambia, and I've heard this, everyone else just agrees. But after the meetings, that's when they go, like they don't have the guts to say those things in the meetings, but they'll say it outside and they'll complain outside. And, these are the things that influence and impact what moves the country forward. And for me personally, I went through like a period of liking KK and then also thinking, nah, this man is not good for the country. But on reflection, I remember he was going through a period of time where he was looking at what his other, the other African countries were doing. And they were all trying to follow this, monarchy mode that was in the UK, which was there's a monarchy, they're there for life, And so a lot of the leaders were like, I'm going to be here for life. Your Idi Amin's and, those people that wanted to hold on to their power. So you do what's a reflection of your time at that point in time. And the world changes and things change. And here we are yet again with yet another spin on, do we look at Trump and go, yes, this is the type of world that we want to live in, to be aggressive, to run on one point of saying, no, we're not going to be a war. We're not going to do war. We're not going to be drawn in by war. We're going to be America first, And next minute you turn around and, you kidnap the ambassador of Venezuela and then you bomb Iran. So that is changing, which also gives the people in our country currently a way of different thinking. Wait, you mean I don't have to accept that this president is here for life or for 2 terms? You mean we can change that? So this is more, I think that's the crux of a lot of the things that we have going on in the country.
Wonderful. Your reflection of the current state of our country. Now you have been informed by your personal insights. You've traveled to Zambia frequently. What's the state of our country?
I think, when I think about Zambia, I look at it like a teenager. We went through our growing pains. We tried to understand what our assets are. Like when you're young, you think, oh no, nobody will like me, I'm ugly. And then you go, yeah, but these are your assets. We've got our, minerals, and people are coming to us, giving us things in exchange for things. So we have value to other people. So we have to reflect on that asset that we're seeing that we have. And then that gives you a sense of pride or power. And as a teenager, we're starting to flex our muscles. Oh, you want our minerals? First, we also want this, Or you can still be like, oh, the Americans want to give us money in exchange for our minerals. Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. And we'll sign that away. Or, so the way that you're learning to be as a country is like a teenager would be going through their stages right now, So I see that we've hit the growing pains. We understand the value that we have. I think a lot of our previous leaders didn't understand how to maintain wealth. And so a lot of it was kind of given away. We allow these mining companies to come in and for reduced taxes. And you think to yourself, but if you're reducing the taxes, you're minimizing what's coming into the country for the people. We have a nation that's 60% still under the poverty rate, and only 40% of the people really pay taxes. So how are we generating wealth? How do we move from a low GDP to a high GDP when we don't have that type of population to deal with that? We have things like our engineers, doctors, nurses, volunteering. They have to not be paid for like 3 to 5 years, which for me is crazy. If these people are not being paid, they're not paying taxes. So how is money going in the coffers? We have a population of people working, but there's no money going into the coffers. So there's a lot of things that we still don't quite understand.
That issue of volunteerism, for me, gave me some rude awakening. I went to, when I was permanent secretary in Northern Province, I visited Chilubi Island, and the council workers were owed arrears of up to 60 months. Now, this is like, they're owed like almost 4 years. So I asked a question, how do unpaid workers report for work every day? How do they manage their lives? How do they pay their rentals? How can they stay 4 years without pay? And it shows, in other words, the medicine will be stolen, the engine to the ambulance was stolen. It somehow finds its way in other activities that you may not like. The corruption, for example, that you accuse civil servants sometimes arises out of low pay, out of
100%.
odd or the allowances that have not been paid. I'm not saying people choose to be unscrupulous to survive. But if you don't pay for my work, how do you expect that I survive? And the example you've given at Ministry of Health, where we have qualified doctors in a country that has a very low number in relation, to the number of doctors needed per population. You have a group of doctors that are not employed and are sacrificing their time every day, sometimes for 3-4 years. So are the nurses. That shouldn't just happen. That just shouldn't happen.
It's absolutely wrong. And I would love to get a number from the government. How many people are actually still at volunteer status? Recently, was it the teachers? They said, oh, there's 2,500 new teachers' jobs that are being advertised or being recruited for. And I thought, are they being paid for? That's the difference. It looks great for the government to say we've recruited all these people, but have you paid for all these people? And that's the difference. And that's the real change. I have a thing that you don't change a country from the top. You have to change it from the bottom, right? If you can move me from zero income to, let's just say, 5,000 kwacha a month, I can get, let's say I'm in my 30s, right? At that point, I can get a one bedroom in a studio place. I can pay maybe 1,500, 2,000 kwacha. I can pay for my food. Living expenses are relatively affordable in Zambia. There was a young man who took me on a Yango, and he told me that he was an engineer working on the contracted roads, I think between Kitwe and Ndola. And he decided he wasn't going to do that anymore. And he said, how am I supposed to get a wife with no money? So he left that to be able to get a job that was paying, and Yango was one of those alternatives for him. And everyone in Zambia is an entrepreneur because you have to be. And exactly like you said, you find an engine from somewhere and you repurpose it to someone else. And that's how people end up surviving. But the whole point is this young man had aspirations to have a family. And he's looking at himself and going, I'm not in a status to call myself a man. And those are the things that I think that the government doesn't see when they're just busy saying, no, we've got volunteers.
Which brings me to the state of our education system. You have an entire population taught to be workers. As soon as you graduate grade 12, as soon as you graduate university or college, you join the long queue for jobs. Entrepreneurship is not taught in our school. Innovation is not taught in our school. In fact, how to handle money is not even taught in our schools. We have a curriculum that was designed by the British because they wanted workers and they didn't have workers. And they had to make, a population of workers from these villagers that they had recruited. But that's 60 years ago. That kind of education is no longer relevant. I've been a big advocate that our education needs to be totally decolonized. Our education system needs to respond to our current type of economy. We have a highly informal economy. Yet you are teaching people to be bankers and clerks. And how many banks are there for this huge population, these graduates to graduate from? I was always very sad when I was sent to a graduation ceremony as guest of honor, because there I saw very hopeful children, young people that have graduated mostly at their own cost for diplomas and degrees that may never be accepted in a job market that's so narrow and doesn't literally exist. What are your thoughts about marrying our education system to the current state of our economy and the reality just of Zambia and Africa?
I think it's an interesting one. So we are an evolving economy. We are, let me say, mining first, agriculture second, which are on the world stage, not the leading industries. On the world stage, the digital space is what leads. People developing software. There's billions and billions being made by software companies. And here we are still focusing on agriculture. And we are not a world exporter, not that I'm aware of, right? We can export, but we are not considered like world exporters. So as far as I see, there's a big lack of understanding what the rest of the world is doing. So we're just following suit. Science, like you're saying, science and technology have evolved tremendously, and yet our syllabuses in Zambia are still relatively dated. I will add, so my parents opened a school around maybe about 4 years ago now as well. So in Sumbu village. And my dad had visited a school and he saw the state. This school was being privately run in a chicken run. And he was just like, this, both my parents were like, this is not how, this should be done. And so they took it upon themselves and they'd already had a church building and they used this church building to then convert it to a school. So at the weekend, it was the church, and then in the week, it became a school. And it was very funny on the one hand, because my dad would be so frustrated with the teachers that we had. But again, these people were coming with their certificates. I'm a qualified teacher. And he's just like, this standard is just, it's terrible. And I just said to him, lower your standards. But what I said also was that what you're doing is supporting these teachers to elevate their standards, because they're starting to see your expectations as the owner of the school. And so they will rise up to meet those standards. And the school now has 300 students. And if you see these kids, I mean, they're so adorable. They're so driven. They want to learn. You can always just see a star as well, and there's some kids that really stand out. And you
I was
you have
privileged to be
hope.
PS in northern province, and in Sumbu is far off, under now in Sama district, like you're going to Kaputa. It's so far away, but it's such a beautiful place, especially near Lake Tanganyika, something that can be a booming place. Again, that speaks to the huge potential in our country. I on agriculture, I think that it can be a boom for our country, a mass employer. Of course, we need to mechanize it. Currently, you cannot, when you take the trip, for example, from Serenje to Mpika, you find these vast empty lands, but there will be a hut. You can even, they've just done an acre. Then there is this entire bush that hasn't been done. Why? Because we haven't mechanized our farming. We haven't modernized our farming. Imagine if that farmer sitting on that small hut with so much land, but just cultivating around their hut, if they had some form of mechanization, including a tractor. India is very good at these small tractors. We can revolutionize the agricultural space. We can be a food basket for Africa. But I think that government and its policies have been such a letdown, because we just restrict ourselves to a small program like FISIP program. We need, in my view, to revolutionize, modernize, mechanize farming. Also bring the technology. I've seen the farmers here in the United States that he can send machinery in thousands of hectares and the machinery do the job without a human being. Drones, do the pesticides, and the mechanized autonomous tractors do the job. Of course, that's very far advanced. But for our people, just moving them away from the hoe to some form of mechanized farming, whether it would be donkeys and then tractors, I think that would be a move. Mining, I think it's we the leaders, have been a lot down to our people, because we give free hand to these multinationals. That free hand they don't need.
Exactly.
I thought I could respond to the issue of mining. Mining should be, if it's our mainstay, it constitutes 70% of our exports. So it should constitute 70% of our revenue. But how come when it comes to revenue, it's around 5-10% to our GDP, yet it's the main exporter of up to 70%? So those misalignment, I see them as a result of poor policies, corruption, and many things. What are your reflections on that?
You explained an extreme on one end of our agriculture and an extreme on the other end of agriculture. And for us to try and even find a way of coming to a middle ground on that is extremely difficult. And it's exactly the point I was making, that we are so far behind on so many things if you look at the rest of the world. And look, there's a sense that I was coming back from Mansa, and we were driving at 4 a.m. and it was around about the time that it was in December, so everyone I think was planting maize at the time. It was good to see at various pockets along the way, was as we were coming, groups of 30 people, and they were out and they were doing their planting, and these were relatively near the road. So you can see that people do it, but again, it's basically still subsistence farming, right? It's enough for us to grow for ourselves, and that's all that they can do. So that can be down to two things. I don't have the land and I don't have the money to buy extra grain to be able to plant more, to be able to sell it even in the local market. So it's very difficult to expect people with nothing, with no access to a government, to be able to go and knock on the door and say, excuse me, how are you going to help me? It's something that people don't know how to do. They simply accept the way that things are. The other problem we have is, the government talks, there's FISIP, there's this. People don't know how to go to ask for those things. The people who know are the ones who know how to take advantage, and they are the ones who twist it in a corrupt way. So we've got a very difficult situation there. The other thing I would like to say is we still have a lot of white farmers. You'll go through farms and you'll see like wires on miles and miles of farmland, and it's owned by a white farmer. Why don't these white farmers do programs to help the local farmers plant their own things, or, like local communities, or to work with the chiefs in some way like that? So there can be opportunities, but there's still a separation of, I'm a farmer, I do this for business, and my focus is the exporting that I'm doing to these 2 or 3 or 5 countries, and that's all they care about. There's no, let me help the local communities to even have the farm next to mine. Let me take my section of my land, divide it up and give it to these farmers, and then I will buy from them what they produce. You can always try and find a way, but the problem is everyone is self-centered, making money for themselves. So that's the difficulty that we have in that sense. When it comes to the mines, I know a lot of people who are really trying to become the artisan miners, and they are being stopped. Or there's still a sense of like it's a rough industry, it can be quite violent, and you have the Chinese who, you can say that they're going through the right routes, but they still are going to the artisan miners and saying, I'll give you this much, because they know a ton is $13,000, but I can give, this one $5,000, and then I've got it for a cheaper price. So how they manipulate the situation is the problem, and how the government exercises their support is also a problem. You can't just open a program and say, come to us. You have to encourage people in better ways to come. This is a very random thing to say, but I don't know if you remember when the AIDS epidemic took off. The way everywhere you went, there was a billboard. Every village had someone educating them about safe sex. The education was forced upon people, that people learned that it is not good to have unprotected sex. This is a dangerous disease. People are dying, and that changed. And that, I believe, really helped to change our country. We don't have that aggressive nature of educating and helping people to become better, or to achieve the things that we think we want people to do. If there is the CDF fund, how do you go to a door, knock on the door? There is this fund. Would you like to apply? Get someone to do something like that. Not everyone goes on the internet. So how do we find ways to be more aggressive with the way that we get our message out to people?
Yeah.
I feel like I went on a rant there.
If farming is important, it should reflect, in policies like that and in awareness like that, and especially the education. Probably we should learn more about, other than entrepreneurship, other than innovation. We should also learn about, farming and mining. Government, the successive governments from Upia Banda have set up what are called farm blocks. Nansanga Farm Block in Central Province, Lusuish Farm Block on the Copper Belt, in Kawambwa, in Western Province. All these places now have a farm block that has been set aside, up to 100,000 hectares of land set aside. But there's nothing happening in these farm blocks for one simple reason, because government hasn't taken the infrastructure of roads, of power, and of water and other amenities. This is to attempt to, because we only have a few, like you said, a few commercial farmers. They number under 1,500, by the way. And they're all located just around Mukushi, Chisamba, Lufwanyama, Choma, Kalomo, very few areas. But we have all these areas. In fact, the statistics are very damning. We are only using 10% of our arable farmland, only 10% of it. Yet that's where our biggest potential
Sorry
lie.
to interject, but this is the issue I have. All these previous ministers who gave themselves land or managed to acquire land, why do you just keep land and do nothing with it? Start farming on it. You've given yourself hundreds of hectares of land. Do something with it.
Yeah. The issue of debt, our country doesn't like debt. Every businessman loves debt because it grows business.
Very much.
But our citizens don't like debt. And you can forgive them, because in 1991, we had accumulated a huge debt of $7 billion, yet our economy was small, under $3 billion. Of course, now it's different. Our economy is far larger, and our debt, GDP to debt ratio is quite, it's not like it was in 1991, but our people remember the damage that old debt did. I played one of your videos where you were analyzing the issue of debt, and just speak to debt. Do we need debt?
So we've got different types of debt, right? We've got individual people's personal debts, and then we've got country debts. That 7 billion debt that you mentioned, you may recall it was a forgiven amount. Remember, it was around about when I was in the UK. And actually what happened was in the Western world, people were starting to say, why do these African countries have such a large amount of debt? Is it not us that caused this debt? And as a result of that, the countries forgave those debts. So it wasn't like we paid off that debt.
Correct.
But then subsequently, we accumulated debt again. And it was an easy way to get money for infrastructure and to show the country, money, not cool a stadium, right? Ama roads are. It looks great. And this is something that I do have an issue with, that we are accumulating debt, and the medical debt I'll come back to, but we're accumulating debt, but we never put the money into things that make money. We put them into things that are a cost to the country. So all we're doing is we're costing ourselves. And I'd said this, I think, on the episode about the money that PF had borrowed, that, the IMF agreement that UPND has had to resolve, and so on. But my issue is still that even though they've managed to get this restructuring, those hospitals don't generate an income. And as a result, we're simply adding money into something that is accumulating money, not generating income. So we can never use that money to pay the debt itself. So this is the big problem that Zambia has. If you're going to accumulate a debt, make sure it will eventually generate revenue for you. Now, you could say some of the highways that are being built, in theory, all these tolls, because Zambia likes tolls because it generates money, those tolls are at least bringing in that income. But also you'll end up limiting the travel of people, because not everyone can regularly go through these places because of these tolls. And there's one too many tolls, let's be sensible about it. It just becomes a revenue generating thing. And as you know, the trucks that are going through the roads, which the trucks are damaging the roads, which means the roads are going to need fixing every 3 to 5 years. every election cycle, basically. And as a result of that, we end up with these damaged roads and the trucks having to pay all this money every time they go through the tolls, but that money doesn't go back in the road. So these are the things that are costing the country as opposed to generating revenue. We don't have a railway system. I don't understand why I know we recently had the agreement that was redone. I think it's to improve the Tazara Railway. Hopefully we'll see some of those trucks moved into the rails, and the roads should remain for smaller vehicles rather than these heavy goods that are on the roads. When I came back from Mansa the last time, there was 4 trucks overturned, and we're now proposing a 24-hour economy. We're going to have trucks on the road all the time if that's going to be the situation. But so my point is, we have to generate income with these loans that we're getting, not simply just putting them into a hole where money disappears. And the same should be said for people's personal loans that they're getting. So I also started up a loan company called Chimpempa Money Loans, and I lend out money to people. People would ask me for money, and then it was like, why am I doing this for free? Let me make this a business. So then I started to lend it under the business name. And when I look at what people borrow money for, it's like, so 6 pin, so you're like, yeah, guys. So you've got people who want to use the money to enjoy themselves. But I've also had people who I've got money coming in.
Tanya, I'm glad that you are in that space, and I have a very serious question there. Our public service workers are heavily indebted. They owe nearly everyone. Sometimes, they find smarter ways of ensuring that they get those micro loans. Sometimes they hide the details of their level of indebtedness because there are rules, but they are highly indebted. Since you are in the space, what do you think should be done? Really, because you have these competing issues. Our people really need access to finance. It's natural, it's normal everywhere. But in our country, it's something we are learning. First, you are either subjected to the Shylocks, and in the normal micro lenders and lenders like yourself, there's just this difficult space. Just speak to that and how we can resolve the crisis of these overburdened loans that our public service workers have.
It's understanding how to manage money. And you said it earlier, we're not educated on how to manage money. Everybody has been through a stage of, I have taken out too many loans. It's very important that I pay for this, or I pay for my wedding, or whatever it is that people want to pay for. But the problem is borrowing in Zambia. People like to borrow, but paying back, it's like blood out of a stone. Now, one of the things I found, which I'm trying to educate people on, is, for example, I'll give you an example. A young lady asked if she could borrow 40,000 from me because she was opening a nail business. She was moving out of working for someone and she was going to open her own shop. More than happy to help her. She's my nail tech. I love her. So I was talking to her and she was like, Madam, I'm paying 40 pin. I'll pay you by the end of the year. So this is October last year. And I said to her, when do you think the place is going to be open? December. Okay, so you think you can pay me in December when you're opening the shop? Does that make logical sense? No, I promise you, madam, I can do it. And I said, okay, this is what we'll do. I'll lend you the money for 1 year. And so that money you'll pay each month an equal amount over that period of time. So when you now open your place, you're still going to have expenses because you still have to now pay the bills, the electricity bills. Maybe you still haven't got all of the equipment that you need for the salon. So you're still going to have outgoing costs. So let's reduce that concept of lend me 40,000, I'll pay you back 40,000 in December, and lend me 40,000 and pay me back 3,800, I think her payment is each month. And so she pays this money on time every time. And she's like, Madam, I'm so grateful to you. I don't know how I would have managed without that loan. So that's point number one. Don't borrow 100% of a loan and try and pay back 120, 30% of that loan. It's impossible. Ask for a payment plan over a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is that's manageable for you. So that's what a lot of people don't understand in Zambia. And I don't know if the loan sharks, if that's also the model that they take. But the other thing I've done is a low interest rate. I charge 12% on the loans that I give out because it's a realistic interest rate. And then spread over a long period of time, it doesn't feel painful. So that's what I try and educate people to have. But there's a lot of educating that I have to do whenever people ask for the money, because I always have to ask, what is it for? Why? What do you plan to? Some people want to pay to buy a house. Like I said, it's an investment that's not going to pay you back. So you're putting all the money into something, but you're not generating extra revenue on your actual income that you have. The problem is people don't generate more than they make. If you're a standard person with a 4,000, 6,000 a month income, you're not going to generate any more. The price of meal is going up.
Just to interrupt,
is going up.
about type of investments we make. I think that's where we need a lot of education and also first structural changes in our own economy. You know, we build houses. They take a lot of money to build those houses, whether it's flats. But the rental income is extremely low. It will be a 5,000 kwacha, 10,000 kwacha. Money you can't even recover even in a period of 5 years. I think that's why mortgages exist in the Western world, where you are paying back in a period of 20 to 30 years. So you cannot borrow a loan and say, I want to build a house and I'll pay you back in 6 months. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. And we believe in the dead assets, as they call them, as you call them, you financial experts. Because if I have a house, I would rather spend 2 million in that house and live in it than invest that money, for example, on the stock exchange, because I don't have the financial education about it. I don't have the financial education that instead of taking this 2 million kwacha and buying bonds at central bank, which would pay me maybe more money than rental income, I don't have that education. So, kula fiemi dadada. So I think there is a lot of things that need to be done.
100%. And, you know, .com, for those people who do follow the Lusaka Stock Exchange, .com has Zambia.com, .com Zambia has been very successful with their recent floating. I think it was in December when they floated on the stock exchange. So sometimes you have to self-educate. Just see what other people are doing, what they're talking about, and then try and follow those models. Obviously, be careful with scammers as well, but there are opportunities out there to invest in other areas. But I always say Zambians are me too. Me too, I want to do a tomato farm. Me too, I want to build a house. Me too, I want to buy a farm. They don't actually have business acumen. And so in the end, although they do it, it never works for them because it's not their actual mind process. It's not, they're not educated in it, and they don't self-educate as well. That's another big problem. People want someone else to answer their questions for them, but they don't self-educate. Like, okay, if I'm about to go into this, I've never built a house before. I've got a small plot of land. How do I actually build? How much will it cost me to build? What type of home do I want to build? Do I need foundations? You know, what they'll do is kind of pass it on to somebody else and hope that that person does it in the correct way for them. And we know Zambia 9 times out of 10, someone will take half of that money, steal it in some way from you because you simply hand it over with no self-knowledge. You know, so you have to be firmer, self-educate first in whatever you want to do. Self-educate. There's knowledge everywhere. You know, YouTube, all of our new AI apps these days. You know, simply put it in. I want to build a house in Zambia. Tell me the top things that I need to be able to do in order to achieve this. If I have a budget of 50,000 to build a house, tell me what I should do first. Gemini will answer all of this for you. So self-education, I think, is a key thing. We cannot always rely on the government to help us. They will do the basic requirements. You know, they'll do the minimum of you've got basic warmth, and it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got the basics. After that, you're on your own. You have to self-educate. So,
yeah. Before I open phone lines, if there are questions for you. And my audience, of course, is highly politicized. They like the heavy politics. But today, we are different with Tanya. She's giving us perspectives from a very, very different angle. We have a nation that lies literally in a perilous situation. We are at a crossroad. We need to make defining decisions for our country. The Human Rights Watch International just released a report in New York just the other week. The picture they painted is a very dire picture in their country report, that we've descended to an autocratic state. You have a leadership that has hijacked institutions of democracy, the police, the judiciary, parliament, the Electoral Commission of Zambia. There is doubt whether Zambia will have, free, credible, and fair elections. You have an economy where, like you stated, up to 60% of that economy has people living in extreme poverty. Things literally have broken down. Every institution, something is not working. You apply for a passport today, it takes you 6 weeks to 6 months to 1 year just to get your passport. The country is at a crossroad. The diagnosis is very different. Others are attributing it to our type of politics, others to the leadership, others to the exclusion. Good people like you just stay away from the politics. What are your reflections as we go to elections? And what can we do really to win back our country and put it on a hopeful path to development,
I will say you sound like a politician.
Yes, I do.
The problem is we think that politics is going to solve our problem, and it isn't. It's the individual Zambian who's going to make the change. When I make the change for myself and my local community, that's when I can change the rest of the country. It goes out from me first. It doesn't come from the top down. Nobody at the bottom gets to enjoy what the top of the government is really enjoying. They don't get to hear about the different agreements. These 1,001 MOUs. We seem to like signing MOUs in Zambia. All the MOUs on the new business opportunities that are coming in, all the new MOUs on loan agreements, which we don't get to hear about until the contract is signed. We don't get to participate in it. All of those things don't get down to the people until that agreement has been signed. So in the end, don't think that what they're signing is for the micro level. It will always be for the macro level, and it's for the greater good of the country. It will never trickle down to you as an individual in a way that is that substantive. So as an individual, your one thing that you have is your vote. If you really want to have a say, cast your vote in the right way. Secondly, make sure that what you do for your work, right? Don't simply accept, I am a volunteer. I've always said to people that I meet, leave, go and get a paying job. Stop being a doctor. It's not paying you. Find a job that's going to pay you. You have a family that you need to look after. You're busy taking money off your mother who hasn't, she's already incapacitated herself. Family scenarios are the things that are important. Do not be dependent on others, and don't think that the government will help you. Help yourself, help your local community, and grow out from there. And I think that's what Zambians need to remember. Now, obviously, we do have politicians and they're speaking on our behalf. But also listen with half an ear, right? And this is what I always say on the episodes that I'm doing. Think deeper. If someone says to you, I'm going to come and make a change, don't just go, yes, ala chinja, mwala mona. No, what exactly are you going to change? Currently, we're waiting for the different political parties to release their manifestos, right? I have to say, I remember when I looked at the UPND manifesto when they came into power, because I was quite excited when they came into power with the way the whole elections happened. And I looked at the manifesto and I was like, well, that was boring. It's like you say the same things every time. We need to raise people out of poverty. We need to improve our mining and agriculture sector. We need to... Yes, we know all these things. You've been doing that for the past 30 years of political parties. Come up with something new and innovative. Look at how other countries are doing it. What is the UK doing that's different? Look at America. I mean, Trump has taken over the world and totally gone against everything. But he did have that 2025 plan, which everyone ignored. And here we are now seeing the outcome of the plan, the Project 2025. And now we're seeing the outcome of that plan. So you have to be able to think further than just, I've cast my vote, the other problem I will say is, which I called on the episode, belly politics.
Tanya, the narrative has been spoiled by, you are right, by us the politicians. Everyone is saying, sit down, I'll bring you a job to your doorstep. Yeah. Sit down, I'll bring you fertilizer to your doorstep. Sit down, I'll bring you a road, a crossing point, I'll create a dam for you. We have these lies that are told every day. Even when we know that the MP is a mere legislator, he can't bring development to your area. But we've allowed our politics to evolve into making our citizens inactive, where our citizens look up to government for everything. Just go on community radio stations or community TV station. You will find every community government yanganepo. Maona kulibe msebo government yanganepo. The belief has been instilled in our people that your political leaders are your saviors. They are coming to bring salvation to you. When in fact, it's supposed to be upside down. It's the citizens, that should deliver that change. That should ensure that things are done in our communities. So I agree with you on the narrative there, that our people, we have to append the narrative. The work is with the citizen, not with the leaders that come to clearly tell us lies, and then we believe those lies. And then we get annoyed that they didn't deliver on the lies that they gave us.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is the other problem we have is this belly politics, right? Naisa mukuria, and of the people that we have who, let's say, don't have a good income or a consistent income, because that's the other thing that's a problem in Zambia. People don't have a consistent income. Today, maybe you've received lots of money. The next 6 months, not an ingwe coming through your door. So you have to work out how you're going to survive over that period. Now, everybody who comes into power is able to give their people jobs. And so if you know a politician, you're very lucky. If you're related to a politician, you're very lucky, because invariably you're going to get some kind of a job within government. And so those are the people, belly politics, vakulisha abantu bobe. So that's why we keep supporting our parties. No, PF is the one. No, PF is the one. No, UPND is the one. By UPND. And that's the other problem we have. You eat for 4 years. When that political party loses power, you want the other political party to come back into power. And that's why people keep saying, but PF, wake it up, because they want to eat, because that's who they ate with, because they haven't eaten with UPND. And so this is the problem that we'll have. When UPND is off the throne, the same thing will happen. Wake it up, UPND. Because that's who fed me. Don't rely on your political party to feed you. We need to get the jobs to the people. We need to allow them to self-elevate so that they know, I'm not eating off that table anymore. What I want today, and I said this in my last video, I want sewers. I want drains built in my community. That's what I need. I want my house. I'm trying to upscale my house, and my sewage is going outside my house. Why? This is 2026. Why do we not have sewage systems in Zambia?
Yeah, wonderful. My last question before I invite callers, and callers will be able to interact with us. I will not keep Tanya for a long time. So if you have a question, you should begin your calling now if you have any question. Your dalliance with politics. Are you going into politics? Are you going to participate in any constituency? I saw your dalliance with somehow with UNIP. What have you decided to go into politics, or you remain an expert and a commentator?
I was going to do a joke, and I was going to be like, I'm running for president, because everyone is running for president, So no. The reality is that I know I am not equipped to run a country. I know that a lot of politicians are not equipped to run Zambia, and that's part of the problem that we have. That I'll say this. I don't know if you recall. I remember when UPND came into power. Everyone was new dawn. I feel like change finto. It took 2 years, I think, and everyone was like, "What are these people doing?" And it felt like they just didn't know what they were doing. There was no momentum. We didn't understand what they were doing. Those who used to eat before were not sure if they could eat, so everything was quiet. And the reality for me is that we had a lot of inexperienced people coming into power. Now, if you've never had a job before, a proper job, and if you've never run a country, let alone run a business, if you've never run 2,500 hospitals or 15,000 schools.
Tanya, just
or
hold
even
it. Just hold it. Some calls are coming in. Callers, please call. We are hosting Tanya, and let's hear your views. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from. We are hosting Tanya Malama Fuchs. Make your contributions.
Thank you, Ambassador Mwamba. This is Nyangwe Dani. But Tanya, today is a good program. It's good to hear ideas, and your ideas, what you're saying, Fiamano. I've always said it, and this is always what pains me. 62 years of independence, you still have people staying Manganda, Tabakwete, Amapetra train, they don't have access to good water. And from your program, what I've heard is like, what this government that come in, then at the end of the day, they make us believe that they are the ones that can improve our lives. My question to you, Tanya, I just want you to ask and say something. What, in the 5 years of the UPND government, what they have done for Zambia, so that even if a next government comes in, they should follow on those ideas? I've liked this program, Mwamba. Tanya is giving us so many good things that we can do and implement back home. Thank you, Ambassador Mwamba.
Thank you very much. Callers, if you have Tanya, I'll throw that question to you quickly.
Thank you so much. That's a great question. Thank you very much. And thank you for the kind words. I'm sorry, but you have to give the government credit for the IMF restructuring. It takes a lot for them to have built the trust with the IMF and for the IMF to have been consistent and lenient with the country. Now, it's the follow through that the country has to do. It's so easy to say, what have they done? What have they done? There are a lot of small things. We always want the one big thing. It's like we want God to come down and solve the problem in one hit. It doesn't work like that. Everything is small and cumulative, and then gradually over time. And as I was just about to say before the call came in, that I had felt that the government was very slow in getting their momentum going. But once they did, we got the IMF deal that came through. We had the currency now stabilizing, looking good. And our GDP rate was also very good. So the things are happening. But the problem is, it's happening right at the end of their term. So the problem is, as people, we go, but we haven't seen that work that led up to this situation. And I've always said that I think this party should actually, UPND should be given the next term, because the following 5 years is when they'll see the culmination of that. And I say that because of this. When somebody opens a business, you never become a successful business in the first 3 years or 5 years. Most businesses in the UK go out, 60% of businesses go out of business in the first 3 years. So if you're going to look at the country as a business, effectively, they were learning how to run the country. They managed to get a certain standard in place, and now they have to grow from that. You could even say Rwanda took the same principle, because Kagame not refused, but Kagame is still in power, having gone past the term that he was actually supposed to. And look at the state of the country as a result of that constant stability that they have. So that's
Tanya,
my
thank you for that. The trouble is developing a country is a long-term process. Our politicians have made it a 24-hour process. And that's why they attract so much recrimination and anger by the time they are clocking 5 years. I like my former boss, Dr. Frederick Chiluba, who came in 1991 and just said, it's not possible. It's going to be a lot of pain. He introduced, that word, you have to tighten your belts. Our politicians are not honest. They look at the scale of our problems, and then they'll tell you that they'll do it in 24 hours. They'll do it in the next 60 days.
Wow.
They will do it in the 100 days. So the anger they face after 5 years, it's not that they haven't developed our country. It's that they told a lie, and our people are holding them up to the lie. You said you will do this in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years, and you have not done it. But truly, the process of development is extremely long-term. It's not short. And the trouble our country faces will require, the reforms required, in my view, from legal, constitutional, structural, just the changes that are required in our country. And then mindset of our people is immense. It's not something that you can even achieve in 5 years. But we, the politicians, simply say, vote for me, you will have a good life tomorrow.
This is exactly the point, and this is also why I was mentioning the manifestos.
Sorry,
So
Tanya,
in theory,
let's
and
get your other callers so that you just get a couple of callers and then you can answer. Hello, caller, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. We are hosting Tanya Mwamba Fuchs. She's a marketing expert and public commentator.
Good evening, Ambassador. My name is Anonymous from the land of AI.
Anonymous, make your contributions.
Yes, it's my voice is known on this platform. So even if this program is not so political today, I still want to remain anonymous just in case someone can compare and contrast and come after me. And why is that important? Because we make very strong comments on this show. We try to speak truth to power, and they go after us. There are some of us who are on a list right now. Why am I saying this? The development of a nation is not just about the economy. It's not just about business. It's not just about infrastructure. It is about the rights of the people of that nation. The UPND has failed not because they are bad economists, but because they are bad custodians of the Constitution. We have seen people, abducted and tortured by individuals who work at State House. We've seen that in this regime. We have seen a young lady coming from the USA just because she was having a podcast. She lands in Zambia. She's in jail. We've seen a young man who's clearly mentally ill, okay? And he goes on ranting and insulting and is locked up. Another guy that they share the same platform insulting each other because the support for the UPND is free out there. It is these constitutional foundations that the UPND has failed to hold down. We saw how they did with what the president actually confessed to. He did the Mingalato to get Bill 7 through. Okay, we've seen that happen, and what does that lead to? It leads to a country whose constitution is not people-driven. So, when you're talking about issues to do with drainage and so on and so forth, you're talking about access to health, you're talking about access to education, and you're talking about all these things. If they are not plugged into a people-driven constitution, we are relying on the goodness of a man. We are relying on the intelligence of an individual. We can't run a country like that. We need a country that is run according to a constitution. Even when the president is incapacitated in one way or another, the nation should be able to function. Why? Because the constitution is set up properly. And so the reason why UPND cannot and does not deserve another 5-year term is because of those things. It's not because they failed to do business. It's because they failed to hold serious the things that matter the most. There are things that matter more than the economy: the rights of people, the constitution, the sacredness of the constitution. This government has not held the constitution with the level of sacredness that it deserves. They've gone on to openly do things, you know. Even if you've seen what has happened in the Lungu issue, where they've held a widow in mourning for 9 months. Those are human rights issues. We've seen how the so-called illegal miners, I call them, untrained miners, how they were moved from Mfumbwe, how people died in that area. That is a human rights issue. So we could praise them for being book smart, but really they have not been constitutionally upright. The integrity of this regime, it leaves much to be desired because the constitution has not been upheld. And that's the reason. So it might be a good idea to say, UPND should be given 5 years. This is not a business. A nation is not a business. It's not entrepreneurship, endeavor. It is people's lives. It is a democracy.
Thank you, AI. Thank you, AI. I've got another caller waiting. Quickly wind up.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, Tanya, strong voice for you there. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Thank you, Mwamba. I'm calling from Zambia.
Yes.
I'm happy to be on this. I'm happy that I've gotten through this discussion.
Thank you.
I'm very excited that you have brought a person like Tanya. She sounds quite authentic. I've never heard of her, but for the first time I was here. I hear you near every day. But this guest, plus the other guest you had yesterday, Changala, they've made my day and they make me feel really proud of them. We have Zambians who have good sanity. I wanted to say one thing. I heard Tanya talk about that, yes, the UPND must be given a chance because in business can take 3 years to get running and just get organized so that it can start making profits. Yes, truly, that's very true, and she's right. I also totally agree. But we have a situation in Zambia. I'll give a typical example of a man who has married a woman, and that woman, they're staying together, but he beats the wife, no peace in the home. He buys her a nice car, nice clothes. That woman has no peace. Eventually, all those things which the present she's getting from that man, they will have no meaning. She would rather have the peace and stay away from that man. So I find that in Zambia, we need to have peace in our hearts. Zambia, I should go on the street feeling peaceful. I can say anything, can contribute to this nation, but not where I'm always thinking, hey, even this course I'm making, I'm worried even who's going to tap me, who's going to know me. You see, I need to be free. I remember in Chiluba's time, I would phone in, make a phone call to let the people talk. I'll be so proudly speak and contribute, and I'll be at peace. But not now. Why am I so scared? This is the peace which has been taken away from many citizens who actually are like in my position. And that's why we need to reboot as a nation. We need to start afresh. I think the mindset, Tanya is very correct about the mindset of people trying to vote because somebody is going to feed them when they vote for this party, and then they know that they'll be benefiting from that party. This cycle must stop once and for all. We need to put people because we want them to take this nation to some place. A place, I'll give an example, taking us to Canaan, not taking us to Egypt. So we need a leadership which has got a heart for the people. You see, so a good leader has a heart for the people, a compassionate heart. I'll give you the greatest leaders we have ever had is in the Bible. Jesus, when he came here on earth, he provided good leadership. He fed people, he healed people, he had compassion for everyone. Even when the 5,000 came, he fed them and then took care of them. But again, he wasn't just interested in feeding them. He showed them the way they should live.
Thank you.
So we need a leader.
I think your point has been made very clear. I like your analogy.
Yes.
I like your analogy that this government is like a good husband who provides financial benefits but is an abuser. Tanya will have a go at that. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Hi, Ambassador Mwamba.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good.
We are hosting Tanya Malama Fuchs Make Your Contributions.
Thank you. Great to have you, Madam Tanya. I just have a question for you. What is your comment on the killing of the woman in Kalumbila? And then also, what is your comment on the effect diaspora has in restoring the democracy we have in Zambia? I'll comment on that on the Kalumbila incident. We have seen the killings in Northwestern Province, and myself, I blame this on the because Northwestern is the province that has been left behind. Despite it being the new copper belt, the wealth is coming from there supporting the country, but the people are left behind, just killing a woman brutally. She's not the first woman. Another 2-3 people were killed. We saw also the police kill people in the same province. And we see police swinging action for political activities and to curb so-called illegal miners. But where are the hundreds of police who are hired when they need to protect a woman's life? On the diaspora, you being in diaspora, I think you should join voices with people who are calling for change, because this government, out of the 10-point plan, they have only delivered one point, actually not even at 100%, which is education. They have delivered free education at maybe 30%. So I think it is the duty of diaspora to hold this government accountable, because there is a cyber law. I'm going to give an example. When I was in high school, my friends, I had a friend from Zimbabwe and a friend from South Africa, and their parents were in Zambia because they were being persecuted, politically persecuted. And the diaspora from Zimbabwe and South Africa are the people who saved, who pushed to help the independence in these countries. And my friends, they went back to their countries once independence was fought. So I'm just appealing to you and many other people in diaspora to join this fight to eliminate this view once only government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tanya, your comment about the UPND has attracted attention. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from. And
Hello.
give us... Good evening.
Ambassador Mwamba.
Good evening.
Thank you. Vashan kwai ni kwa kaputa kuno. Shinalia ni fafine kwa kaputa. Wale ngumfam kwai.
Mkwai, Mayo, we can hear you.
Natotela sana. Twatotela ba Mwamba, pamili mumule bomba, pama bantu bosabo muleta kuti balande na ife papoela palwa mikalidi lwa chalo Jesu. Lwa makwebo, nonshi, ifipatala, imisebo abana besikulu, mikalidi fe Yesu yonse. Twatotela sana na pamulete lelo ababa ba malama mkwai. Ba malama mwa bombeni bafe mwalondola fionse. Nachelo kuisa lelo ni ngofefe mwalondola nefe mwatasha kutilo buteko bulipo. Au nabugomba sana bwalichita nabukwanisha ukuthi inkongoleshe swisha chalo kwa IMF chitwe shiwile mubumvya ukuthi la debt restructuring. Uyo debt restructuring ba malama ukesalipile shinkongole lyaba suspended nini umfa kunta shikulo mwatufunda cha business for doing kongoloko noko ndefo yakono kuishiba business yenu kokuthi lefuza kutwisa kongola ba malama ishinkongole shili suspended pali imyaka yonse. Ino shikesa ambo kulipirwa nililali. Makwebo nshiyali muchano, aya katuwafu kwisa alipire shinkongole yo myaka 25 or 50 years. Nishaba nabandi nabe shikulu bandi nabana babu, eva liponomba pachalo. Elo nkongole isho nena kulunkasha na lisompola ko panono, vena bakesa shikontorola shani. Ba malama na mulali dilwa kutila mwalifishi befintulwa makwebo na economics na findiko. Ba malama londolo le nyifi debt restructuring shinkongole shi suspended panyanga yakuti. Chikesa alipirwa n'abana n'abeshikulu besu. Panti tulemo lolwa mikoti. Onkuba na fionse file imba muchalo na swejila ichionse mwasanga. Tatukwetemo ulubali. Ichalo tachile kwata mogu nonshi. Ama citizens ba vota bonse. Tabale pendelwa kupantu. Baletila government ya alipela abo bashi bunonshi baisa muchalo mumwesu. Ichile itwa ati tabalelipira kobena tax kano ifo foba leshitisha mtu masitolo tuntemba nafwe babomba kufipatala na baticha na bambiko ife tax yesu yena chali umapa mkonso wa mkuru chali kosango tetubakali kukuchita tax lwapi tolo nyumba ili mlela ndokutira obuteko chaba mupashanya obuteko kukurunning business ati the first 3-5 years kwati ku UK uko ero chinga ba qualified ati business ya pusuka mu fyakuti yalawa ba malama wesu ubuteko ebutupashanya kumakwebo bantu amakwebo yali kwata nokutila limbuna yakwata insurance mwalilipira kali okutira business twatamba twakulalipira ko pamwe shwa kuti bakutinga twasanga okusanso mumakwebo aya mukesa tuwese shako o mukesa tupusu shako kunkongole shimbi twakongola nomba ubuteko na bukwate fintisho bwate nako nomba pela kakato pakuli pali debt restructuring nomba ingezi parliament yangalirwapo musango yangalirwapo because mulanda mu first 5 years that bakwanisha okustafyos but na bakwanisha okutobolola parliament anymore lecho muita legislature na judiciary na executive fyonse fili mkwapa kwa muntu ba malama the person that have heard you sound that thing feel okutimwana bwino that ukutobolola legislature na judiciary na executive na bakwanisha muri 3 in fact 2 years eno mwene ni kintu chimbi change opposition nga kola fie da pweshisha mchibemba kana tina ndeshi mwalatira na mayo aletukana ku computer no mchibemba baletira nga watu tetulande po balekwe batifyantikisha omwela so ba opposition tabako tekufyantikisha balefyantikisha omwela ba UPND kufika fenga ulyaka umulubendo wa provincial youth chairman wa kusolwezi ulya watukire balungu fya batukire ati bring him over here tukese mchita circumcise banduko kulusakata mchitefi. You see, when we speak in Mwalala culturally, public circumcision is very bueno. But in Pafma towns, imitundu ya pusana mu Zambia, kumo circumcision tatulupula, tabalupula. But Japanese culture, yes, northwestern, balalupula.
Mwebe nakaputa, puisi sishe, nama phone ya Afro, I want to take 2-3 calls, then I allow Tanya to. But I think your point has been made very clear.
Matotera nomba na chafo kupepsha ko bamalama okwebati batukwekese shepo apo bachira fundo lwanko uba kuti wapoke enkongoli okuno okuna bene balande fabela 12% ivyo ni kwisa winga bachitira access mkwa.
Okay, I think so. I think she should answer. Na mumlefu aikwa chachine. Yeah. Hello, caller, please tell us your name and where you're calling us from and be brief.
I'm calling from Zambia. I'm Didi.
Didi, make your contributions quickly.
Bamalama na tufofo baturangirira fo batueva fo balanda nokuba tupele chance ubuteko obu bamalama ifwenino bamalama na tupita mukupakaswa imweli mtamule pakaswa mweba nensu mule lyoko tamule pita mukupiba mukumona tirelo bala ikatoyu uyutalande uyu nangu nafi vipanisho fini bamalama roads nayo naika aya levombela ne bapanga togeti bamalama roads nayo naika the whole Zambia tapari road iri bwino bamalama mwama road yali fe bwino bamalama kuchuponga wafiro kubomba bwino nangu bakupa wafiro ku control efintu kuli wanu ye nangu 1 month bala tamfia tete tuwekesha kuna kabiri ababa yufi bali tubika mukutapata mukupita mugwafya nabene bali yaikala bakankamana bamalama bayufi bali tina ati nga kyali nifi nga tatwaisheshi takwaba ko bamalama constitution yo bakasaula ku register moya mukula chichunganya takwaba ko bafuna opposition party ikulu mwe tungulule fintu mwe bomuli kunu bamule control kwa tuyunga ima kamwikatireni ko airport bamalama ala muri ukutapata muno tulefu abali abakulu baletitokwa tikubeka tebo tulefu abakontrol kintu nishibale bachitira filia nishi bali mukuchinjishira ku register nga kuli amashina kuli bali mukuchitatempa nishi judiciary iru bene.
Yo, thank you. Mwai push my question. Mwai push. I think now I want to take just all the calls in quick succession that she can answer, and then we wind up the program. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from, and give us your contributions.
Good afternoon again, Mwamba.
Good afternoon.
This is Dr. K.
Dr. Kalonde. Yes, Dr. Kalonde, make your contributions.
Yes, I'm very just, I feel like I'm a bit disappointed that our guest today seems to be, anyway, our perspectives and perceptions are different. Praising a failed government in so many ways. I would start with the debt restructuring. Debt restructuring comes with a lot of implications. Yes, one of my sisters has mentioned this from Kaputa. Can you believe someone from Kaputa understands what debt restructuring is better than the guest in terms of
awe doc mwilande fyo chindike niko wa guest wanja emkwa wali shiba. Just make your views. You know I protect my guests.
Okay, nala lande for ichiri kumutima.
Yo lande ichiri kumutima, but please respect my guests.
The calculations here, debt restructuring, are very detrimental to the future of the country. In terms of percentage, in terms of how much we are going to pay as interest, and who's going to pay. As she mentioned, you know that our minerals that are supposed to be the source of paying debt are no longer in our hands. How will these children pay for that debt? Then there is also an issue of our freedoms. Bamwamba, you can have every freedom that you want. You can eat fianso formula fire. But if you don't have the right to talk, to speak, you have nothing. I always refer to this little movie that was done in the 70s, The Little Mermaid. When that mermaid lost the voice, it changed how it viewed life. It couldn't even be heard by the prince. Those are things that we have to understand as humans in terms of the way we handle our lives. Taking away our freedoms, I'm telling you, it is the worst thing that has ever happened to a Zambian. And we shouldn't take it lightly. We should not take it lightly. When we start seeing people running away, scampering from the country, there must be something wrong. And I'm not going to praise that government, regardless of what I do and who I am. I'm not afraid of going to Zambia, but I feel at any time I can be a victim. Any of us can be a victim on trumped-up charges, and you know what? We lose our rights, we lose our freedoms, we lose a lot of things. Even the economy that we are building up for our children can be lost in such circumstances.
Thank you, Doc.
Let's not praise the wrong. We must be able to say the truth. And I always let me just mention one thing. Please, look at what Dambiso Moyo wrote in that book. Giving you few coins because of CDF is not going to make your life change. Get your rights and your freedoms, things will be better. Read Dambiso Moyo's book. It's very important for us to understand where we are going.
Thank you, Dr. Kalonde. Thank you. From Montreal University. Hello, caller, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from and make your contribution. Be brief, be brief. Hello, caller.
Livingston.
Oh, Vamwa from Livingston. Yes, quickly make your contribution.
Thank you so much. My greetings to Madam Bamarama Murishanu Kukua Sunguko. I followed the program and she has got so much wealth of information, especially on debt and management. But first statement, I know she's not a politician, but maybe we try to help each other in bringing reality on the table. Bamalama kuno ku Zambia kuno takuli kumfwana buno takuli unity. Mu Zambia muri mwenso bantu abakwata omwenso. Mu Zambia muri nsala. Mu Zambia we have a lot of challenges that have resulted due to mismanagement of the economy. Ngamona minerals to akwata bamalama. We've got so much minerals in our country, and some reports were saying government made almost, the mines made almost $12 billion, but I don't know how much came to our country of that $12 billion in copper. So it's a situation where you become second. Then everybody send a stake in Chalo. Because even when you look at most of the mineral taxes, mines are running a number. Most of them they are on tax holiday. So look at the quality of roads they are giving us now. With that due carriage way within few months, road in Ambok. So according that this government must extend, I think it is something that you must reconsider, because it's not just about economical development, but everything is now almost broken down in this country. There's too much regionalism, there's too much division, in short. So, Malama, let us help each other so that we can liberate this country from whatever we are going through.
Thank
we
you.
are in Zambia. We can feel the pain. Thank you so much.
No, she knows very well. She also comes to Zambia, so do not exclude her. She knows what's happening in our country also. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from, and make your contribution. I'm going to take 2 last calls, and I revert to Tanya Malama Fuchs, and we begin to wind up. Yes, caller. Please make your contributions.
Good evening, Ambassador. Good evening. I have a flu, but I forced myself to speak on this program.
I hope we can hear you. Yes.
Good evening. Yes, if you can hear me, well and good. But I'm disappointed because I was expecting the guest to explain things that will bring value to the community and to the general public. I believe and trust that Zambia are still facing the current suffering. If you can praise the government of today that they are good, we should even give them extra 5 years. It's an insult to us as Zambians. If you look at the debt structure that you're talking about, this is a debt structure which was constructed by the previous government, and it was an ongoing thing. It's not a new thing. We saw the president coming from the airport, people getting our teachers from school being praised in the street that the data structure was structured, and yet not. So now we're hearing that it has been done well and good, but are the people going to pay? It's a government, and who paid after I don't know how many years. I don't think this is the right way for you to come and tell us that we should praise the government and even giving them a second term.
Thank you. Hello, caller, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from and make your contributions. You are our last caller for now.
Good evening, Ambassador.
Yes, Wamunkonge.
Ninkwata question kuri mayo. Pamura ndo bafama barakongwesha ba government amataba kiramwaka. Ro amataba babakongwesha abene bafama ewa ngo babonje mpia shabo pakulima ari amataba no kubatwalira pama depots parabashitisha kukonfia mpia shabo sha ama transport. But the government bafuire bakoresha bafama 3 months before season ya kulima mataba irafika. Number this year bafama baba koresha mpia sha mataba after ni season ya kulima mataba na ipita. So number ngachaji ni mwe bafama tumwa special in pali situation if your government bachitire kulima bafama inoye.
Thank you very much. Malama, let me bring you in. Of all your contributions for 1 hour, those last remarks to give the UPND a chance, a listed, the state of our country, like I said, it's at a crossroad, and you probably have heard the anger against those remarks. Let's begin to conclude. First, maybe answer any of the callers that have asked you this question. Speak to them.
So thank you, everybody who phoned in. And as is the way of the world, not everyone will like me, and for various reasons. Some may feel like I didn't answer the questions. What I will point out is a lot of the questions you asked, if you go to my TikTok account, I have answered all of your questions. And all of you who think I'm a UPND supporter, you will see how much I slate them on my TikTok account as well.
True. You are very fair.
Exactly. I hold them accountable. That's the difference with what I'm doing. I'm not asking them to be my president, my party of the day. I am holding the work that they are doing accountable. Now, you have to understand that just because they've done something and you don't like it, it doesn't mean that it was their choice that it ended up that way. The IMF restructuring, they don't dictate those terms. Right? So there's things that happen on the world stage that affect how they respond and how they end up with the final deal that they have. So please, of all you people that that don't like me, go and watch my channel. And the one thing I always say is think deeper. Don't start at the question you've asked me. I want you to go to the next level down and the next level down and answer deeper questions than the ones that you have asked me. But so there are a lot of questions, and I will say, AI, Diddy, a lot of people were expressing their own personal opinions. You have every right to. If you don't like the current government, that's your opinion. It's your life, how you've lived it, and how you've ended up in the decisions that you have about your governments. That's entirely up to you. The lady who asked me to speak to the situation of the lady that was brutally killed this week, really. I don't like answering on things like that for various reasons. I think there's a cultural element that's attached to that. There's a sexual element that's attached to that. I think this whole concept of witchcraft and juju in Zambia, it's so prevalent and so insidious and evil. I don't touch on certain subjects, and so that's why I wouldn't go into that anymore. Obviously, I don't think it was I think it was wrong what happened. I hope that the people get found and prosecuted. But I will be touching on that on a video that I do on my channel, but it's not relevant here for me. I think, people who are disappointed in me, again, you have every right to be. You guys that are disappointed, you want a big bang solution. Someone is going to come and save you and give you a miracle. It's not going to happen. The world does not give out miracles in large doses. If we're going to have miracles, the previous government would have given us a miracle. The government before that would have given us a miracle. Look at all of your previous governments. They've done more or less exactly the same thing. So that's why I say think deeper as to how we can come up with solutions. And I said, it's not about the macro, it's about the micro. What are you going to do for your country and for your community to really impact the changes that you want to see? What else can I say? Gosh, it was a lot. It was quite overwhelming, a lot of questions. Can you think of anything that I can pick up on?
Yes, the issue of debt, Dr. Kalonde, our dear sister from Kaputa, has a very strong feeling that debt and debt restructure cannot be celebrated because we are merely shifting the burden to our children. And here we are, instead of bequeathing them with an inheritance, we are pushing debt to them while we consume now, while we celebrate now. For both Kaputa and Dr. Kalonde, I think the string is very clear. You have a very big resource in copper, gold, and ore, and it's being exploited now with tax holidays and without paying for it. So where will the resources come to a debt that you've pushed to the future? So debt restructuring, in my understanding, I think that was both Kaputa's concern and Dr. Kalonde.
I think one of the things we lose is when you keep saying debt, debt, debt. Please attach a number to that debt, right? We have lots of different types of debts in Zambia. We've got the health debt,
Oh,
which is 200
there I can help you. I can help you. So let's start with our
didn't mean you.
domestic debt.
I meant the callers.
Yeah.
The callers should attach a number. Don't just always say debts. Don't be generic. Be specific with your arguments as well.
Yeah, let's start.
Carry on.
In 2021, the UPND found a foreign debt at $11.9 billion. There are varying figures, but you look at the statistics that were given by Honorable Stumbeko Msokotwane in Parliament in October 2021 and in November 2021. They put the foreign debt at $11.9 billion or $12.6 billion. That foreign debt is sitting at now $16.4 billion. So 5 years ago, the debt was at $11.9 billion or $12.6 billion. It's now at 16.4. The domestic debt was 178 billion kwacha as at 2021. It's now sitting at 252 billion kwacha in 2026. 5 years later, the debt has grown. And this debt includes not just money owed to contractors and suppliers, but also government debt at the central bank in government bonds. And, so you have a debt that has ballooned by almost, in foreign debt, the one that was 12 point something billion, I think has accumulated another 3 billion. The kwacha debt, if you put it varying exchange rate, that's almost $11-12 billion. People talk about total public debt, and you have talked about total public debt. Total public debt in 2021 was around $25 billion. Again, it's varying. There are some other statistics that were now revised in 2022 that show that total public debt was $31 billion. Total public debt now is sitting around $35 billion. So debt has gone up. Repayment periods and debt service payment is now what has changed as a result of debt restructure. For example, the $3 billion Eurobond should have been cleared by 2027. This has been pushed up to 2048. So I think this could be a good summary for what we are talking about.
Okay, so I want to just make this a real world scenario, okay? So you come to me, Chimpempa Money Loans, that's my company, okay? And you say to me, Tanya, I want to borrow 100,000, no, let's just say 10,000 kwacha. I want to borrow 10,000 kwacha, okay? And I say, no problem. I'm going to give you that 10,000 at 12%, right? You're in agreement. You love it. Yes, absolutely. You take that money and then you go and let's just say you're actually going to spend that money on medication and an operation that someone has. So this is something that's not generating revenue. So now you've paid for that medical bill, and now you've got 10,000 plus 12%. You carry on working, and now you have to pay that debt back. And then you come back to me and you say, I don't have the money to pay that. Can I pay you next month? Can I pay you next month? Can I pay you next month? And that debt, you default, as we did in 2021. You default on that debt. So you have missed many payments as a result of it. Your debt has now ballooned from the 12% plus the defaulting charges that you also have to pay. So your 10,000 plus 12% plus charges that you need to pay. And you're telling me, in fact, I don't even have the money right now to pay it. So I say to you, okay, we'll do a deal. I'll give you 3 months without payment, and then after that you can start paying, and we'll agree a new amount that you pay back. Instead of paying me the full amount as we agreed, I'm now going to do a payment plan of 3,000 each month. Okay? Now, you still have the debt, you still have the interest to pay, and you have the expenses as a result of having not paid that debt on time. This is what the government has had to contend with. So when you keep saying debt, 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 understand what debt means. The government cannot pay that money in full. They don't have it. They are not paying, they're not generating enough revenue to pay for your schools, to pay for the mealie meal, the fertilizer, all these things that you also want, the FISIP, the CDF, all these things that you want, as well as paying the debt collectors. So you have to be able to say, okay, as a government, the portioning that we're going to do to keep the country running is this much, and to keep the debt payments happening is this much. And they can only do that in agreement with those foreign countries, not with you, because not the payer, not the country.
Tanya, you've put it very well. You've put it very well. Hence the criticism that why are we giving tax holidays in that environment where your revenue is limited? I think that's where the people are concerned. Do we even have the luxury to give the tax holidays?
So I think the other side that we have to remember is at one point, we were a high risk country to invest in. Nobody wanted to bring business to Zambia, right? So, and we don't encourage our own people to start businesses. One of the worst things about Zambia is trying to set up a business. They make it so difficult. You can invite ministers to the launch of your event. They won't show up unless you have been successful at something else, and then they're there to support you. So when it comes to setting up new businesses from scratch, you have zero support from the country. But what we want to be able to do is say, okay, now, how do we make sure that the foreigners keep coming in, because they have large amounts of money that invariably they bring in. They are employing people that the government is busy giving volunteers zero money. At least these people are paying some of the people, right? If a mine can employ 10,000, that's 10,000 paying jobs. That's 10,000 people paying taxes, as opposed to our doctor volunteers who are not getting paid anything. So we have to give some allowances, and the taxpayer of the people they gave allowances is the one who's then putting money into the coffers. So we have to, as I keep saying, think deeper. It does not stop at that one point. It's not a large amount, but the more people that they bring in to do businesses, like I said, we have so many MOUs. These MOUs that we've got in this country, hopefully that means business at the end of the day. So hopefully the more of those that we have, at least taxpayers will start paying taxes, even if we don't have the big revenues from the main country. The other problem we have, you notice when they give these tax breaks, what do all of these people do when they get their tax breaks? 5 years, 7 years later, they leave the country. So I've seen, it's not ShopRite, I can't remember which company is now exiting.
All the South African companies, especially exactly. The furniture and clothes companies like Smart Center, they came in with a 5 tax year holiday. In fact, what they did is every 5 years, they closed the shop. And the following day, they reopened with the same conditions, another tax-free. Before government had realized they had been in the country for 20 years tax-free.
This isn't a UPND only thing. This is all previous governments have done this as well. So that's where you always have to remember to be fair. They didn't start this trend. They're merely following it on and hopefully improving on it by bringing more people in. That's the only difference that the people make, the governments make.
Yeah, continue. Sorry, so, you had asked a question and I answered it.
Yeah, no. Again, like I don't understand how you can be against the government for having got a debt restructure just because it's not money in your pocket. Believe me, the country would be so much worse if we had not got that debt restructure. The value of the exchange rate would be so much worse. The value of the revenues coming in would be so much worse. Today, copper has actually dropped in value because of the situation in Iran. So we've gone from $13,000 for a ton, and it's gone down to 11,000. So now those people who are not paying now, they definitely will not be paying even more. But the government still has to work out how to make sure your petrol doesn't go up and your mealie meal doesn't go up, but there's no extra income coming into the country. So how are you not going to at least give them some credit to say, dude, good luck. I hope you solve it, because I know I still need to eat. And this is why I say solve your problems first. Make sure you've got a job that
No,
pays
clearly,
you before you
clearly,
worry
Tanya,
about
you are right there. Debt restructuring needed to happen. That's why we had the default in 2020. In fact, if you look back in 2019, Walyangandu, as Minister of Finance, started the debt restructuring, and he apportioned it this way. On one side, the Eurobond, which was about $3 billion, he hired Lazard Ferres, a French financial company, to restructure that debt. And then the $5.9 billion in project finance that we owed China, he engaged in bilateral agreement with China. In fact, their first visit in 2019 to China, China even cancelled the debt that was due for Levi Mwanawasa Stadium, $90 million plus interest, was immediately struck off. So debt restructuring didn't start with President Hakainde Hichilema under the G20. It started under that government. In my view, President Hakainde Hichilema did a different route. He submitted himself to the G20 framework, where a period where we were not allowed, we were given freehold not to pay our debt, the so-called default. We were the first one in Africa, but 38 other countries joined us because of COVID and because of the crisis that just faced the world. So we were the first one to default, but 38 other countries in Africa joined us in not servicing our debt under the G20 framework, which President Hakainde Hichilema took over. Of course, these are political narratives because it's, like free education, I always say, was started by Mwanawasa, who abolished all fees and only allowed PTA fees. But when the politicians sing the song, people will not remember that the free education started with Mwanawasa. With Edgar Lungu, we reduced those PTA fees, Parents Teachers Association fees, from 650 kwacha to 150. And when President Hakainde Hichilema came in office, he said, even that 150, I don't want anyone to pay. If we have to follow your mantra, think deep, then you have to trace where the free education comes from. It literally comes from Mwanawasa, So I'm agreeing with you. Even on debt restructure, yes, Zambia needed it because we had arrived at a place where our debt service was eating into commitment to social and economic investment that we should make for our country, and it became unsustainable. In fact, this attracts the criticism from Dr. Grieve Chelwa, who I hosted a few months ago. He said, why is this new government, after debt restructure, paying up to $1.2 billion in debt service? And in 2026, they'll pay another $1.2 billion. 2027, $900 billion in debt service. What have you restructured? He called it a very expensive restructure, if we are to think deep. Because he says the entire reason why the PF defaulted is that the debt service had reached a $1 billion mark. And everyone agreed that this was unaffordable. It would be done at the expense of the country. So here we are now. After debt restructure, our debt service is minimum $1 billion a year. Again, the criticism there is valid because the purpose of the debt restructure should have been that we should be paying far, far less than we are paying.
I totally agree with you. And I think we've both covered the debt restructuring, but what I do want to cover also is, the debt restructuring is one level that we desperately needed. Then we continue to receive aid as a country. And I know we haven't gone through this, but this is also something else that I cover on my TikTok, that the aid that we receive so much aid in this country. You think that we would all be rich by now, right? Our medical system should be the best medical system with the amount of aid that we receive. And yet what happens? Money is being funneled from those, the money that's coming in from the aid, and then it's being funneled out into other channels. Now, this is the point that I keep pulling out when I say, you think that I'm a UPND fan. I am really not. Where is the money coming? Where is the money going once we receive these millions and billions of aid into this country? Because how much money do you need to make your economy better? Our hospitals should be the top of the class. And yet we have medical. This week, we received a call from a family member in Kabwe, and she had gone to the hospital in Kabwe, which is not far from Lusaka, and she couldn't get medicine from the hospital because there was no medicine in the hospital in Kabwe. She had to go to the pharmacy and she had to buy the medicine that she needed. This little scheme that's happening needs to stop. And I don't care which government it's under, it needs to stop. And because it's the people, the basic people who are phoning us in the UK saying, "Tatkwete mpia tutuminenko mpia tushteko umuti, ama 10 kwacha umuti, ama 50 kwacha umuti." That's the problem.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Tanya, today you were our special guest. It was inaugural. So will not take anything heavy. You've already taken enough. But I know you are capable. Looking at the debates that you conduct, you are capable and able to conduct robust debate. And I hope to bring you again and thank you for see how our people responded to you. So already your narrative is being established in our country. And I think for today, we've achieved. Thank you very much for your time and thank you for those insightful thoughts. Do you have your last words?
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come on and share my views. And I am merely a simple Zambian like everyone else. I am nobody special. I am frequently in Zambia, even though people in the comments were saying, "She's not even in Zambia. How can she talk about us?" I am frequently in Zambia. I am on both sides of the ocean. This is why I can speak so openly. Many people spoke about fear of retribution from the governments and so on. I'm speaking, but I'm speaking in a sense that I'm not insulting people, and so therefore I hope that I can be honest about things and nobody's going to come back at me. If they do, before But the point is, we have to start by saying as much truth and exposing transparency where we can. And after that, then we can be comfortable and happy with the vote that we cast in August. You need to know how you're going to cast your vote.
As you've seen in Zambia, we have the divisions. When you speak about the divisions, it's sometimes an academic word, but our country stands polarized. That even if the president does something good, and you praise him, you will receive the bashing. We are so polarized, there's no space for the middle. You are either left or right, either from the north or from the south, either UPND or PF. I think we need healing, where natural debate can take place without suspicions. And for me, this is what I try to do.
Yes, and I appreciate you allowing me to share my views in exchange with yours as well. Again, like we said, we're just merely opening people's eyes to new ways of thinking so that they become more informed citizens of the country.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tanya. You've been gracious so and we didn't discuss how much you can be here, but the phones is still buzzing. People still want to talk, but no, we are done for today. I think they can then follow up in the comments and also go to Tanya's page, go to her TikTok videos, engage in the robust debates that she brings to the fore. She picks a topic and she is very fair and as strong as on any other topic. If she picks on something the PF did wrong, she will blast them. If she picks on something that the UPND have done wrong, she will blast them. She follows issues, not personalities. And I think that's why she's on this platform. Thank you, Tanya. God bless you. We hope to see you soon on this platform.
Thank you so much for having me. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
They openly admitted that ZAMSA had bought medicines at inflated prices, awarded contracts to unqualified companies, and allowed medicines to be diverted to private pharmacies. But the full report, naming the masterminds, remains classified today. The government claims it can't release the report because investigations are ongoing. But other countries regularly release audit reports while prosecutions continue. As Kasonde Mwenda of the Economic Freedom Fighters put it bluntly, if the report was clean, they would have released it. If you think hiding a national audit keeps the truth buried forever, let me give you a real-world warning. Let's take a look at Malaysia and their massive corruption scandal. Billions of public dollars were stolen. An initial audit was conducted, but instead of releasing it, the Malaysian government classified the audit report as a state secret to protect the masterminds at the top. They thought they were untouchable. But you can't hide the truth forever. Eventually, the government was voted out, and the very first thing that the new administration did was declassify that hidden audit. The truth was exposed, and the supposedly untouchable Prime Minister, Najib Razak, was sent to prison. Hiding the PwC audit in Zambia today doesn't erase the crime. It only delays the inevitable. A secret audit is the ultimate pasture for a sacred cow. It's where you hide the people who are too powerful to touch. Instead of touching the masterminds, the Drug Enforcement Commission arrested 10 mid-level people, including procurement officers and company directors. Let's take a look at the facts of some of these arrests. So, one of the companies involved, Mukushi Business Ventures, received 16.1 million kwacha of public money without even being registered with the Zambia Medical Regulatory Authority. They had no license to operate. The director was arrested, but who in the government approved giving an unlicensed company 16 million kwacha? Who signed those papers? Notice who is missing from the arrest list. Not a single minister. Let's look at the Ministry of Health itself. Since taking office, UPND, we've already had 2 full ministers of health. Sylvia Masevo was removed in July 2024. Then, last month, February 2026, President Hichilema unexpectedly fired her replacement, Elijah Muchima, in the dark of night with no public explanation. Are these ministers being quietly fired because of the rot in the health sector? Is it too deep to manage? See, firing a minister without explanation is not transparency, it's damage control. It's moving the sacred cow out of the spotlight before the public sees what they have actually done. To understand why the masterminds remain untouched, let's look at the Anti-Corruption Commission. In February 2026, ActionAid Zambia alleged selective justice in corruption cases. The UPND media director challenged the civil society to provide specific evidence, stating the investigative wing would not hesitate to act if they were given the facts. Was he telling the truth? Because in January 2026, formal complaints were filed containing explicit evidence that UPND officials were illegally collecting voter cards for money in Kasama. The Electoral Commission confirmed this was illegal under Regulations 38 and 39 of the Voters Registration Regulations and officially referred the matter to the ACC. What happened? Crickets. Absolutely nothing. Silence. The public never heard what happened, while the UPND officials that were reported. Meanwhile, the DEC is currently mobilizing anti-money laundering units against Archbishop Alec Banda over 50,000 kwacha vehicle. In July 2024, former ACC board member Dr. O'Brien Carver publicly stated that the ACC is captured by corrupt elements. Days later, the Director General resigned and was replaced by Daphne Chabo, a known UPND member from the Ministry of Lands, a department consistently ranked one of the most corrupt ministries in Zambia. How can we expect independent investigations when the investigator serves at the pleasure of the investigated? If this government wants to prove the no sacred cows promise was not a lie, it needs to take action. Release the full PwC audit. Prosecute the masterminds, not just procurement officers. Make the ACC truly independent from State House. Until the